No.
All right, we're using the new FSO3 platform now, so have you had a chance to kind of get used to that?
Yeah, I like it a lot better actually. Seems a lot smoother.
Okay.
Looks a little better. It's a little more functional.
I like most things about it. There's a few little things that I would prefer to have them do differently, but I guess that's always going to be true.
Yeah.
Okay, well, most of our assignments and videos are due on Thursday, midnight Eastern Standard Time. This week you have till Saturday, midnight Eastern Standard Time, because you didn't have the weekend this week to work on it. Discussions are due the day after the assignments due. So normally they're due on Fridays, and this week they're due on Sunday. You turn in your assignments via FSO. If you have an assignment that you want me to look at, or you want to make an early submission so that I can critique it, but you don't want to actually turn in your final copy yet, or if there's some other reason that you can't submit it via FSO, like it's not working properly or something, then you should put it in a GitHub or a Dropbox and send me a link to it via email at pcorn@fullsail.com. Be sure it's .com and not .edu, and don't send it to my Gmail address or any other address, or I probably won't see it. So that's pcorn@fullsail.com. Don't send the files through the email because they'll be quarantined by Full Sail's email system. So just just put the files in the project in a GitHub or Dropbox and just send me the link to it. Okay, early submissions. If you want to, you can send me early submissions, and I will critique them and tell you if there's anything wrong that you need to fix, and that way you can be sure that, it'll give you a really good chance to get a good grade, because if you've done anything wrong, you'll know what it is and you can correct it before you make the final submission. If you're going to do an early submission, those are due on Tuesday, midnight Eastern Standard Time, except the first week when they're due on Thursday. Again, in that case, you wouldn't, well, actually, you can send it either via FSO or email, but just make sure that you tell me that it's not your final submission, because I only take one final submission. So if you send me a final submission and then you decide, oh no, I'm going to change something else, it's too late. You already made your final submission. So the only way you can make a second final submission is if I send it back to you and ask you to resubmit it. Late penalties are standard. Full Sail, 25% off your grade per day, plus there's a hit to the professionalism grade. So if you know you're going to be late, ask for an extension at least 24 hours in advance. And if you have some kind of an emergency come up that prevents you from doing that, then let me know what the emergency is. I don't give extra credit. As I said, multiple final submissions are not accepted unless I ask for a resubmission. I don't require GitHub commits. You can use them or not as you prefer. Make sure that you have all your resources in the project folder, including your images. Okay, put them in the final place before you add them to the project, and if you didn't, you'll have to remove them and add them back in. If they're not in the project folder, then I won't be able to see them because they won't actually get sent to me. You'll be able to see them on your system because Xcode can find them elsewhere on your computer, but when you send me the project folder, if they're not in there, obviously I won't be able to see them. Let's see. Each project states whether to use code or storyboard files. For those projects that mention an XIB file, you're encouraged to use storyboards. Storyboards are similar to XIB files, but the view controllers can all go in the same file. Anytime you communicate with me, please put your name and your class, whether you're an AOC1 or AOC2, in all your communications, and send them to pcorn@fullsail.com. And don't send it to the Gmail address because it's highly likely that I will never see it if you send it there. Okay, any questions about that?
Not so much. I mean, just To recap, you prefer the storyboards, correct? Because I never even started messing with the XIB files, and I
Yes.
prefer the storyboards also.
Yes, storyboards are what I'm teaching. XIB files are kind of an artifact from before we got into storyboards. So.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, great. Let's see. So you are in AOC2. The first week you'll be covering custom classes, why we inherit from NSObject, custom class syntax, accessing classes, the difference between public, private, and protected variables, or let's see, and how to access class data from an external class using properties and getter-setter methods. There's a practice that involves creating an Objective-C class and defining some variables in there and creating properties. You'll learn about static methods, what a static method is and why you need them, and how to create one in your custom class. About inheritance, how to inherit from a custom class to add child class functionality, how to override base class functionality with your own methods. Second practice involves creating a base class called shape and adding methods called print num sides. You'll use an NSLog to print the number of sides in the num sides variable, and you will use inheritance to create child classes called triangle and square and set num sides variable appropriately for each. That's just a practice, so it's optional. And then you'll be learning about private methods. Let's see, the assignment. In the assignment, you will design and implement 5 classes. There'll be 1 base class, and then 3 subclasses, and a factory class that can generate objects for the 3 subclasses depending on which is requested. You're going to wrap that in a single screen app that uses labels to show the values of the created objects. Now, this first assignment is mostly about inheritance. I think for most people it's probably the hardest assignment of the month, actually. So if you have trouble with it, be sure to let me know, and I can help you figure out what you might be having trouble with. Do you have any questions about that?
Not so much. That's a lot of stuff I did some outside research on, but it'll be fun to learn a little bit more of the specifics as to why.
Okay, great. Do you have any comments or questions about the class other than what I just went over then?
I'm sorry?
Did you have any other questions or comments you wanted to make? Because that's about all I have for the AOC2. Unless you had some additional questions or something you wanted to discuss.
Not really. I haven't had too much of a chance to go over all the material yet. But from what you explained, it seems like pretty straightforward. No questions that I can come up with right now.
Okay, well, be sure you let me know if you have questions or need help with anything. And I'm going to go on to recording the section about AOC1, so you could drop out now if you like.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Okay, for those of you that may be watching this later, or if anybody joins me in the middle of this, AOC1, you're going to be looking at a Welcome to Apple Objective-C, Professionalism, Overview of iOS and Objective-C, an Introduction to Xcode, an opportunity to make your first program, Objective-C Introduction, console logging and output, loops and conditionals, debugging with breakpoints, so there's going to be a debugging overview, a section on viewing and changing variable data in the debugger, and a section on breakpoints, overview, and usage. You're going to be learning a little bit about basic memory allocation. You'll learn about NS strings, how to create one, NS strings and NSLog, so how to log information out to the console using NS string and NSLog. Formatting an NS string, so how you can format an NS string so that it can also contain variable information. You're going to be learning about arrays and their memory layout, static array syntax, and mutable array syntax. Container classes, so NSArray and NSMutable array, NSDictionary and NSMutable dictionary. Single view applications, you'll learn a little bit about the UI window and the UI view hierarchy. You'll learn about view controllers, so you'll get an overview of view controllers and what those are all about. And you're going to be learning about UI label, how to create those and an overview of those, and how to create multiple lines with UI label and about properties. Now your first project is going to use some of that information that you've learned about labels, strings, and arrays. You're going to choose a book that you have read and use that as the source information for your project. You need to use at least 3 different colors for the labels and at least 3 different colors for the text, and those labels and the label colors and the text colors should be different from one another as well. There should also be another unique color for the background of the entire view. So that's at least 7 different colors in your app. 1 for the background, and then different colors for the labels and different colors for the text, and no overlap between any of those colors. Okay, you need that text to be legible, so you want to choose colors that work together. It doesn't have to look pretty necessarily, although that would be nice, but it does need to be legible. All the UI elements must be created in code and not using storyboards at this time. We do this so that you will understand how the UI creation works in more detail. All your code will go into the viewcontroller.m file. Change the background color of the view to any color you want, but make sure it's different from any of the label background or text colors. You're going to have book information and UI labels. You're going to have a UI label at the top of the view that's the title, that's going to be used for the title of the book. You want to center the text for that label. You're going to create another label that contains the text author with a colon after it, and that text will be right justified. Then you're going to have a UI label right next to that author title label, and that should contain the actual name of the author of the book that you chose. And this text should be left justified. Then you're going to have a UI label on the next line called published colon, and that text should be right justified, and a label next to that has the actual publisher information of when the book was published, and that text should be left justified. Then you need a UI label with the text summary, and that can have a colon in it as well if you like. That text should be left justified. Then another UI label on the next line that contains a small summary of the book's plot. That text should be centered and should span multiple lines, and you should not take your summary of the plot from the web or some other source. You should write that yourself. It should be something that you created and not something that you lifted from another source. Labels and arrays. Create an NS array of 5 items that are talked about in the book. Now this, remember, is an NS array, not an NS mutable array. These items will be NS strings. Add the items to the array. Don't put commas or the word and in the array elements. Those should be added inside the loop that builds the NS mutable string. You're going to create a variable of the type NS mutable string and allocate it. And you're going to loop through the NS array that you created and use the append string method to append each of these items to your NS mutable string separated by commas. Okay, so you're going to be building this NS mutable string. So you're going to be adding one array element at a time and adding commas in the correct places, and then before the last item you should have the word and. So for example, you would wind up with something with a NS mutable string that might say dinosaurs, comma, jeeps, comma, storm, comma, giant turkeys, comma, and eating people. So you're adding the elements from the array, one element at a time, adding your commas in the loop, and then adding the word and at the correct place in the loop. Then you want to create a label with the text list of items, and make sure that text is left justified. And then in another label on the next line, you want to set the text of that label to the NS mutable string text that you built, that you created in the loop. Increase the number of lines if necessary, and make sure the text in that label is centered. Now, make sure that all the code is presented neatly and logically and refactored as much as possible, and be sure to include a generous number of comments, because I do take off if you don't have comments in your code. All the instructions that I just went over are in writing on FSO. So if you have trouble or questions, be sure to let me know. Earlier the better. And welcome to Objective-C. And that's all I have for you for tonight. So good luck.